So let's talk about this very different and unique project called Rideshare by Digital Sky. What brought you on board to this project?
This was one of those classic Hollywood connectivity things where, you wake up on a Tuesday and you're not really sure how the day is going to go, and then these folks find you, and they were familiar with my work, on the soap opera. And I believe they were also familiar with the fact that I had been diving into podcasts lately. I did a For Dummies, the podcast, which is still rolling. I'm still doing that. But I think combined with that and what I was doing in the podcast world, they felt that I would be a good fit to participate in their rideshare episode, which was part of their Digital Sky series. And it was the pilot episode. It was the first one. And I could tell going into the recording session that these guys were serious. Like, this was not just your throw around project. Yeah, we're just going to see what happens. Like, they had a plan for this thing, and they wanted to break some ground in the podcast world, because in a day and age where everybody seems to be doing podcasts, I mean, you can get into that medium pretty easily. And, if you got a microphone and computer, you can have a podcast. But these guys wanted to create something where you not only told a story, they wanted you to feel the story. They wanted to create an environment that was something that has never really been done before. And in this rideshare series, they're going to have a video component as well. So it's not just audio. You can go to Apple and download the podcast, but then you can also go to their YouTube channel, and they're going to have a video element to go along with it. And when I first heard the rideshare episode, I was blown away. I stuck my little AirPod Pros in, and I got lost in this world where when they're in a car, you feel like they're in a car. The production quality is ridiculous. I mean, you feel like you're there. And, as a storyteller, I've been doing daytime for a long time. That's what we strive to do, create those environments. And sometimes we're very constrained with our sets and daytime television. Like when we go to Italy, we change a tree, in one set to make it Italy, because there's an Italian shrub there now. So now it's Italy. And so you get frustrated sometimes with those constraints, but these guys are going all out. They're just knocking it out of the park, combining the audio and video element. And I'm a fan of doing things that I'm nervous about doing. Mm-hmm. And, if it doesn't scare you, why put your time into it? And this was one of those things that interested me. So I threw my hat in the ring. I said, yeah, let's give it a shot.
So how specifically did they record this? Did they just record it like a typical podcast, or was this like a table read? Everyone was in the same room. I mean, how did this work?
It was essentially a table read. And I hear you. I didn't know what I was going into either. I'm like, this sounds really involved. Like, what's going on? No, we sat at the table. We were all mic'd up. We all got to look at each other and act with one another. And I had never met any of these folks before. I was blown away by their vocal talents, by the way. They were just amazing actors. And it was very typical. And I kind of left thinking, well, I hope it turns out well. The real magic of this thing is behind the scenes. I was blown away by what it actually was and what they did. I mean, we as actors gave them a little seed, and they just grew this giant tree that was just it set itself apart from other podcast products that I had been a part of. So they're really breaking new ground in this podcast world. Yeah.
So this is not a typical podcast, because I experienced podcasts where you just basically just press record and you just talk for 20 to an hour. So this is like carefully directed, like it's sort of like a radio drama, like War of the Worlds, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. And before television, that's what people had. That was their escapism. They didn't have guys like me on soap operas running around, stealing babies and stuff. They had War of the Worlds on the radio, and that's what they wanted to do with Foley and all these instrumentation. They tried to create these environments, and when the monsters would come and they'd have like coconuts that would, oh my gosh, they're coming. Now we have all this crazy technology where you can hear the window being rolled up, and you can hear the voices change in the inside of a car. And when people are going down a hallway, the producers make sure that it sounds like people are in a hallway. So you feel the transitions of the environments, and the gunshots. This guy that I play, Keith, he is a con man with a heart. He is a wild man. He is as if James Bond just took a really strange turn and went down a dark path. But he's a pretty dynamic character. I mean, they didn't have to sell me very hard on this guy. He's dangerous, and he preys upon the public, you know, under the guise of this friendly rideshare driver.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's also interesting about the series. I know I'm straying off a little bit, but it takes these technologies that we have right now and makes us realize how dangerous they really are. And the fact that we get in Ubers with strangers and we have this absolute trust that we're going to get from point A to point B and everything's going to be fine. Well, that's a little crazy when you really, really think about it. I mean, what could happen if you get into a car with a guy like Keith on this podcast? You're asking for trouble. So I don't know. It's fun. It's not just storytelling. It's like story creating is what they're trying to do in the podcast world.
You played Keith so flawlessly. Was that because of your experience on all these years on Days of Your Lives? You know, you could play these type of sort of like a nice diabolical character at the same time.
Well, I when given the choice, I'll always want to go bad over good. You know, I will turn in the Superman cape for a Joker face any day. And it's just more fun. And I played both sides of the fence. I mean, when I did Passions, I was very much the good guy. Ethan always tried to do the right thing, Dudley do right, so to speak. And Brady Black on Days, he has a little bit of a darker past. You know, the man is a substance abuser. He tends to act before he thinks, which is fun to watch. He kind of acts the way in which most of us would love to. Much like this guy Keith on Rideshare, he does things that you just go, "Oh God, that'd be fun." The problem is our morality as people and as human beings get in the way of those things. So Brady, I found a similarity between Brady and Keith, very much so in the sense that they do the very things that we wish we could do, but we don't because we know it's wrong. You know, it appeals to that darker side in all of us that, I don't know, just wants to break out, especially right now, man, when we're all just stuck in our homes and this pandemic just has us just wanting to get outside and go do something. This guy in this podcast does that very thing. He is out there and just living life, and the hell with the consequences. I'm going to go with my gut on everything, whether it's good or bad, you know, and it's fun. It's just fun.
I'm not sure. Do you have experience in voice acting, or you just treat this not as voice acting?
That's a great question. I don't think there's a giant difference between what I'm doing with Rideshare and what I'm doing in, you know, as a thespian, so to speak, or as an actor, because I find myself behind my desk portraying this character of Keith, but my body's in it. I mean, I'm hitting things. I'm throwing myself around the room. My wife came in the other day. She's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, just, you know," and so I'm just as physically putting myself into this character as I would something that was on air. So I guess the answer to that is I'm putting the same everything into it, because yeah, the physical and the I don't know, the speech gets in your body and your body gets into the speech, and it just becomes one little experience as an actor.
Excellent. How's your experiences and trust of using apps such as these rideshare apps now these days?
It's funny you asked. I was so mad the other day. I actually had to fly somewhere, and I got up. It was at 4 a.m, and I could not get an Uber. Then I went to Lyft. I could not get a Lyft, and I'm like, "Oh God, I'm gonna have to park at LAX," which I don't love doing because it's like $600 a day or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm embellishing, of course, but it feels like that. So yeah, I was so frustrated with all these Ubers and Lyfts we have all over the place. I could not get one to accept my ride request at 4 a.m. So that stuff happens. You know, we take it for granted that it's always going to be there and it's always going to be accessible. Not necessarily. Sometimes you might get into an Uber and have a guy pull a gun on you and, you know, and take all your stuff. It's just the way the world is sometimes, I guess.
With your nice long career, how do you choose your roles now these days?
Well, I mean, the majority of my career, it's funny, has been the two characters. I mean, Passions and Days of Our Lives has been 18 years of my life, both of which were recasts, funny enough. So whenever I get a chance to originate a character such as Keith, I jump all over that. I look for layers. You know, I've been telling stories on soap operas for so long that when a new and invigorating, interesting story comes around, I kind of dive on that, because at this point in my career, I feel like I've told them all. You know, I don't know of any other dramatic circumstance that I haven't been in at this point. So I guess that my answer to your question is anything that's new, anything that's groundbreaking. And that I guess that is why I dove into this pool with the rideshare community, because I think this is different in so many ways.
It's definitely is different. And for your fans, I mean, you must have done like 1,200, 1,300, 1,500 episodes, and I'm embellishing at this point, but
Of daytime drama?
yeah, of daytime drama.
Oh, it's more like 3,000.
3,000. Wow. How?
I think so. I don't know. I might be bad on the math, but somebody said that to me the other day. I think a fan in Canada said something to me like, "Do you understand that you've done over 3,000 episodes of television?" I was like, "Are you sure?" I don't know. Possibly. At this point, it could be 10,000. It could be 600. I really don't know.
Well, tell us, to your fans, on what is the longevity. I mean, how do you endure all these episodes without getting bored yourself?
That's the trick. I mean, that's the gig. That's the job. You have to want to keep it interesting and go in every day. I act almost every day, you know, and not many people can say that. Guys that make movies, they do a movie for a month or two and then they're off for 6 months. And then how do you keep yourself in tune? I'm fortunate enough to, you know, act every single day. But you're right. Sometimes storylines are recycled, especially in soap operas. So you have to find a way to bring a new twist, bring a new flavor. And that's also the responsibility of the writing teams. And honestly, on soaps, we do have a lot of writer turnover. You know, they just want to bring in a new flavor, so to speak. It's like a Baskin Robbins ice cream store. There's nothing wrong with chocolate, but you want to throw in some, you know, Rocky Road once in a while, some sherbet, just to mix things up. They all taste good. And I find that they do that. But our current writer, Ron Carlivati, he doesn't pull any punches. He loves to have fun. And he's a fan of the classic days of soaps where they just worked. You know, that's when soap fandom was at its zenith. And I think he's kind of bringing that flair back to Days of Our Lives a little bit. And, you know, all taking it seriously, but all the while having some fun with it as well.
Excellent. Well, let me wrap it up with one more question here. I know it's a silly question to ask.
I love silly questions.
Well, I mean, you know, because of the times that we're actually going through, but, you know, it's an obligatory question to ask is, how are you staying sane and creative during times like this?
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, projects like this really help. I look forward to recording these days. We take about 5 or 6 hours to do one episode of Rideshare. And it's probably one of the best part of my days recently, because it allows me, we do it remotely right now, but we have all this technology, which allows us we all hear each other. We can see each other if we want. We can just get ridiculously creative. It's so intimate. And it's just a lot of fun for an actor to be able to do that. But I try to keep myself busy. I'm raising kids, you know, I'm raising twin boys that are 14 and just want to go outside and experience their first year of high school, and everything's remote right now. So as a dad, I just try to keep them busy, keep them tired, try to get them outside and swim as much as we can. And we play basketball, and I don't know, you just try to stay active. I hate being non-productive. You know, it's hard for me to sit around and just relax. That's never been my forte. and it still isn't. And I'm realizing that. But the good thing is we start taping again at Days of Our Lives on the 1st of September. So I will be back in the studios with a ridiculous amount of protocol. I think it's going to be the safest, studio in the world. But I can't wait to get back to work. The vacation's over. Let's get out there. Let's start making some magic again.
Well, that's certainly great news. Hey, Eric. Hey, thank you for speaking with me, and I look forward if you're going to do this again with Digital Sky.
Thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me. It was great. Thank you.
Hey, not a problem. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Cheers.